Welcome to Clear Mountain. About 4 years ago, Ajahn Kovilo and myself came to Seattle hoping to begin a community of monastics and lay practitioners as well, a monastery where people could find refuge from the busyness of the world, from suffering, and where a community of monastics could live and practice near enough to the city that people could come on a regular basis, but secluded enough where people could find quiet in the forest. For about 3 of those years that we've been here, we've been searching in earnest for land. And about a month ago or so, we finally found a parcel, or 2 parcels rather, which really meet all the criteria which we were looking for. So for these next 3 months, we put in an offer as a community. Our Friends of Clear Mountain Steward organization did. And these 3 months will be going through a due diligence process to make sure the land is truly suitable. And if the community comes together in support, after those 3 months, we will be able to acquire that land, we hope. If you want to learn more, continue listening. We'll have a conversation with Ajahn Kovilo, myself, and our board. Or click on the link in the description, friendsofclearmountain.org/land. We're very excited to share this news with all of you. So this is the beginning of a presentation we've put together about the story of Clear Mountain leading to the land, and then a more broad discussion to really, we want to keep the ethos here of just really keeping the community informed about our process, the steps going forward, and the care we're taking with this enormous step for Clear Mountain.
Okay, so just a bit of background for people who are maybe totally new to our project. Ajahn Nispo and I are ordained in the Thai forest tradition. So here on the upper left, this is Luang Pu Man, who really revived the forest tradition. The Buddha himself was a forest monk, and the early generations of disciples were also living and practicing in the forest. And throughout the course of Buddhist history, 2,500 years now, the forest tradition, i.e. monks and nuns living in forests, practicing in forests, sitting at the root of trees, becoming enlightened at the root of trees, that has waxed and waned with periods of monastics being more and more supported by kings and countries. Luang Pu Man in the 1900s revitalized this practice of going back to the forest, and his student Ajahn Chah, one of many, took up that practice and created a form into which Ajahn Nisabo and I both ordained. Ajahn Pasano, the Caucasian monk there on the bottom, was a direct disciple of Ajahn Chah. He was the monk who I ordained with at Abhayagiri Monastery. And to his left on the screen, or to our left, is Ajahn Anan, which is the monk with which Ajahn Nisabo lived and studied with in Thailand, also a direct disciple of Ajahn Chah at Wat Map Jan in Rayong. And yeah, the form, it's monks living in little huts in forests and practicing, spending most of the day just by ourselves, learning how to be adult humans without devices, and thriving in very simple environments. So that's the tradition from where we came from.
Other elements that are attracted us and inspired us in the tradition, the Thai forest tradition ascribes to most of the rules which the Buddha laid down. Well, all the rules the Buddha originally laid down. We don't touch money. We don't use money. We live on faith. And every morning since coming to Seattle, even, we, most mornings go for alms at Pike Place Market. And really, the Dharma and our lives are offered freely to this practice and these teachings. Though Clear Mountain isn't a formal branch of the Wat Pah lineage, our teachers pictured here and others we will name or could name, Ajahn Jayasaro and others, are profoundly important to us, and we deeply venerate them and hope we're carrying on their legacy with care. Years ago, still living in Thailand, really I felt like the Northwest where I grew up, there was room for this tradition and a monastery in this tradition. And then Ajahn Kovilo and I met, became friends. We really first grew close when we went Tudong, walking on faith, and camped together in a sort of grove of poison oak, and not always the best beginnings, but it worked well. And in the end, 4 years ago, put out the intention to come to Seattle and see what would happen. Our goal was to provide a home for a community of Buddhist monastics, monks who can give inspiration and instruction in meditation and spiritual matters, provide a free refuge of meditation, community, and peace to all who want to come, regardless of religious learning. We don't charge for teachings in this tradition. We expect nothing except, hopefully, that people really try their best to purify the heart and cultivate love and wisdom. Help address society's current crisis in meaning and mental health. We see these teachings as more relevant and important than ever. Bring people in close contact with the natural environment and preserve the forest. This has been a key aspect of the project and influenced many of our decisions of who we work with, including Forterra, which we'll speak to later, who we have partnered with for Finding Land, a conservation organization, and
remaining close enough to be accessible to those in the city. Younger, more diverse group than usually makes it to rural monasteries. And this is kind of a unique feature of Clear Mountain in the broader American forest monastery landscape. We were based on some advice from Bhikkhu Bodhi early on, as well as just the model of some forest monasteries in Thailand. Many forest monasteries in America are quite far outside of cities, remote, 2-3+ hours outside of big metropolitan areas. And from the beginning, our intention has been to be not too close, but close enough that middle path. Yeah, people can, through making the effort, really come and get at some remove, but not totally inaccessible. So, goal from the beginning.
So to summarize, this plan or these aspirations are embodied in a very clear plan for us. Once we acquire land, hopefully in 3 months, if all goes well and the community comes together, we'll begin with a multi-purpose hall where people can gather, share a meal every morning, offer food to the monks, and also eventually this would hopefully feature a room for kids to play in while their parents meditated, etc., a library, a shrine room for question and answer sessions for meditation, a small place for people to heat up food where they could share. It would feature 2 normal kutis where we could live, an elders kuti where we'd hope to invite teachers like Bhikkhu Bodhi, many others. We'd love to invite Longpa Pasano and so many of the venerables we respect. A quarter for visiting bhikkhunis as well. We have a deep and tight-knit relationship with the local communities of bhikkhunis around the Northwest and elsewhere. A garden, a workshop where people could work, sit, play. Maybe not the workshop, but the garden. Phase 2, we would hope to expand, build a large temple that would hopefully seat, accommodate perhaps 200 people or more. Additional regular kutis where we could bring in other monastics to stay. More elders kuti, a sort of bhikkhu commons where bhikkhus could stay in seclusion, but with from the wider community of laity, but also with one another, having a sort of nexus of community. A columbarium where people could store the ashes of those who had passed away. And finally, phase 3 would be a much larger vision.
Yeah, and this is a project which we're hoping will last for generations and generations. We're hoping this is a monastery, a place, a sanctuary for hopefully centuries. So phase 3, which might be in 10 years or maybe completed in 20 years, we might in total have enough small huts or kutis for 20 monastics, and then also older monastics, as monastics are humans and we get older as well.
We do. So, it's true.
And sick. We get sick too.
So we won't sort of spend too much time on each of these visions because we do want to bring in the board soon, but effectively the monastery would facilitate connection with Sangha. We would have these little huts, we called them kutis, eventually for 20, and a few for elder monks or senior monks who we would really want to bring to bless the community with and give a comfortable abiding to, as well as bhikkhunis quarters for visiting bhikkhunis.
Yep, this is a small kuti in Birken Forest Monastery. We won't have as much snow.
We probably will not have that. More rain. Rain.
And of course, connection with nature. This is a huge part, as you might guess, of the forest tradition. Any forest tradition we'll have trails around the monastery where people can come, and even if there aren't formal group meditation periods, people can just come and learn from nature, learn from walking around. On the road past the property that we're looking at, there's actually a whole nature preserve that people can explore as well. Rattlesnake Lake, Rattlesnake Cliff Ridge. So,
and the land we're looking at is a total of 90 acres, so there's a lot of room for forest walking and trails there. We would hope the monastery could facilitate connection with community, which we see as a great missing piece of both society today and Buddhist circles as well to some extent. So we'd have this multi-purpose hall where people could gather, share food together, really come together and connect with other Kali and Amita spiritual friends. And once again, the garden and forest would allow people to come together and work, the columbarium to remember those who were deceased.
And the small kitchen, the idea why it would be small is that we are hoping that we can go on alms round on a daily basis. So it would just be a place where people could bring in food to offer as supplement to the main alms. So yeah, the main temple, which would probably be in phase 2, would be a large temple. We're thinking maybe 70 foot by 70 foot, quite big, and hopefully noble silence. So it's a place where people can come and just sit. We would have Dhamma talks there, but outside of that, it would be just a sanctuary for silence. Pujas means a devotional practice where you can do chanting and meditation and celebration for the most part. Right now, these days, we've got between maybe 70 and 100 people coming to our Saturday gatherings. And there might be some transition where that goes up or down when we go out to North Bend. But yeah, there are Buddhist holy days throughout the year in which a large hall like this would be able to accommodate many more people.
And these are grand visions. It's a large temple we're thinking of. And we're quite happy in small huts, and we feel we owe it to the future of this community at large to make room for it. And honestly, after 4 years, we are already reaching attendance of nearly 100 people in a gym. So we think after another 10 or 20 years on a beautiful piece of property, we want to make sure we can accommodate the community that might want to come find refuge there. And we would make these teachings available, as we have been so far, through hybrid means as well, so that those not living in Seattle wouldn't be cut off.
And this is a mock-up drawing, but outside the window there of this sala, that is Mount Si, S-I, which is short for Josiah. But just so everyone knows, that's the mountain that we would see from the land. And in Thai, Si means clear. So it's already...
Clear mountain.
Clear mountain.
It was made to be, maybe.
Yeah.
So finally, we get to introduce our board. Just to give a little context, monastics, we aren't allowed to use money or touch money or give orders about money. So years ago, Abhayagiri Monastery took a lot of care to organize a really amazing nonprofit structure modeled after the monastic lay relationship. We have our monastic nonprofit, Clear Mountain Monastery, which does not handle liquid funds. It holds buildings and land for the Sangha. We also have a lay steward organization called Friends of Clear Mountain, which is guided by the monastics, but specifically directed by our board of directors and lay people who both provide their expertise to the project, but also handle and vote on liquid funds and basically donations, stewarding them with care such that the monastics maintain an appropriate distance from them. But we're also being very careful to use donations responsibly. So without further ado, if our board can unmute themselves one by one, maybe we could first introduce Jyotikara Kim Tool Esterbrook. Jyotikara is her Pali name. She's our president. Kim, would you say hello?
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to serve on the board, my fellow board members. it's been a real delight to be a part of this project over the last several years. Yeah, I'm a mindfulness teacher, yoga teacher, mother, meditator, and this community has brought a tremendous amount of depth and joy and friendship to my life. So I'm so happy to be of service.
Thank you very much, Kim. And to our vice president is Steve Wilhelm. Steve, would you mind unmuting?
Hi, folks. Yeah, this is Steve. Very, as Kim said, incredibly honored to be part of this. I've served on Northwest Dharma Association for many years, so I've kind of a big network of other sanghas in the region in Western Canada, and also teach through Eastside Insight and Seattle Insight. Teach the Dharma and edited Dharma books, and so used to be a journalist, and this is kind of what I do is Dharma in my post-working days. So it's very happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Steve. If we can then introduce our treasurer, Allison Thomas.
Yes, hello. My name's Allison, and yeah, I have the great pleasure of serving on this board with these wonderful individuals, these wonderful monastics, and yeah, it just feels very joyful to be here sharing this beautiful news with the community locally and globally. So thank you.
Allison, thank you very much. And also Ajahn Nispo and I live behind Allison and her husband, Dave Tetro's house. They're over there.
About 40 feet away.
Yeah. So for the last 4 years, very, very generous gift. So sadhu, Allison. And finally, Nicole, would you please unmute and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole. It's good to be here. My husband, Scott, and I arrived in the community earlier this year. We walked through the Daman Desert thinking we wanted to get close to community and perhaps even something we can help build. And it turned out that here we are. So I'm really excited to be here and also bringing a lot of prior work experience in real estate and contracts and all of these things to this project. So really thrilled beyond words to serve the community. Thank you.
Sadhu, Nicole. So these 4 board members have just been so key to the progress of Clear Mountain, as have previous board members we've had, and a wide just roster of volunteers who really keep Clear Mountain afloat. We have I think our volunteer roster at this point has over 100 names on it on continual teams. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and we're just so grateful for everyone who supports this vision. So we're going to enter a different phase of the slideshow now, where we will introduce a slide, but then we'll have a board member kind of lead the narrative a little bit, and then others can chime in as they will. But we thought this would be the most fun way to do it, and we have lots of pictures now. Steve.
Yeah, so I was, let's see, in the very first weeks, I had an opportunity offered to take Ajahn Nisabo on a tour of monasteries in South Seattle that I know from Northwest Dharma Association. We took a day and we visited Sri Lankan monastery, 2 Vietnamese monasteries, 2 Cambodian monasteries. And it was really striking how he was just absolutely honored and recognized as a fellow monastic by these other monastics. And to me, that was a turning point in really realizing the importance of what was beginning to happen here. And I just wanted to sort of touch on a few, this is my journalist self saying, what's it mean? A few what's it means from what they were talking about the fact that Clear Mountain will be so close to Seattle, but basically about 30 miles on freeways, so about 30 minutes if the traffic is good. So this will be perhaps the largest Buddhist monastery, forested Buddhist monastery in close proximity to a major city in North America and Europe. And proximity means that the Clear Mountain will be focused on responding to the Dharma needs of, working urban people, to people really engaged in the world. And it's going to also come alive near one of the strongest tech communities in the nation. So this is really important because it's kind of like the ancientness and the current technology of the 21st century will be working together. Secondly, the full support of female monastics is huge, and they've really kind of stuck their necks out in terms of how things are seen in Asia. Just turning the wheel that there will be full recognition of full equality of female monastics and male, and this will make Western Washington a world leader in gender equality in the Dharma, and this has already started to happen because of the incredible welcoming, embracing attitude, equalizing attitude of these two monastics. There's now a Bhikkhuni Vihara in Olympia and one in Port Townsend, meaning female monastics. And these three entities, this monastery and those two viharas, work in complete harmony and equality and mutual support. So that's extraordinary, very important on a global level. Thirdly, the interweaving of nature and Dharma, which is at the heart of Thai forest tradition, and there's a huge history in Thailand of monasteries preserving little islands of forest. And in a sense, that's what Clear Mountain is going to be doing with almost 90 acres, to be able to offer nature and Dharma interwoven to people. And these will be, a lot of the people who are in the Sangha already, they're in tech world. Their world is, binary code and AI. And to be able to be around trees and living things in places where we saw elk when we were first there, a real heartland of nature and Dharma together will be more and more precious in the decades to come. So it's super important. And then lastly, the fact that this is from my Northwest, I've been on the board of Northwest Dharma Association, and I've edited a newsletter for 13 years. And this whole region there's several hundred sanghas, several hundred Buddhist groups in the greater Northwest and Western Canada, all of whom, to varying degrees, know of each other. There's an enormous amount of contact between different Dharma groups in this entire region. And as Clear Mountain develops in coming decades, this will become a nodal point for this harmony and Dharma in the region, a place of innate support for all other Buddhist sanghas. But because of the land and the footprint, it's going to be a great safe haven for many people who have to practice, just in small houses and temples and living rooms all over the area. This will be a central place, and kind of in the purity of the monastics Vinaya held by that. And I guess the last thing I wanted to say, because, how we came to where we are has been, in terms of finding land, has been indeed a project right from the very start. And the first couple of years we did it, we worked on it by networking. We did a whole lot of various teams. Kim was on the team at one point, and different other board members, first reaching out to the Dharma community, just talking with people, like, is there land available? What do you know of? We did a whole bunch of that. We ended up contacting almost all the camps. There's a whole bunch of like summer camps and religious camps all through the region, and we were dialoguing with all kinds of leaders of those places in case anything had opened up or they knew of something. We were in constant dialogue with the the Catholic Archdiocese, the Episcopalian Archdiocese, so way up in the religious hierarchy, just, searching to see if they knew of anything. And after a while, it became clear that a new approach was needed, and I will now hand it to Allison.
And before we jump into that, actually, that sets the ground perfectly, but would anyone else on the board or Ajahn want to just say anything else about the sort of path of Clear Mountain from the beginning to now? Steve did an amazing rundown, so there's not too much more I think that needs to be said, but just wanting to open up that chance.
Yeah, anybody on the board?
I might just say that, we came to Pike Place for our first alms round, and the first day I went there, no one knew I was going to come, and 7 people offered food spontaneously. And since then, I don't think we've really gone hungry one day on alms round. And it's sometimes felt like Dharma, always like Dharma, but sometimes like Devas. And we've really been held by generosity through this whole thing. We've never, we don't ask for anything for these teachings. We've existed in a space of generosity with our gatherings. The religious community of St. Mark's has just offered their space to us. It's been astounding. And Seattle's the most secular city in the US, which meant we really didn't know how it would land, but there's been such an upwelling of warmth in the younger community, in a really diverse demographic of people that are hungry for a spiritual center, and that's been very heartening. We've also gotten to welcome, as Steve mentioned, our Bhikkhuni siblings, which has been wonderful. At this top left of the photo, you'll see Aya Nandabodhi and Aya Santusika next to Longpa Pasano. We've gotten to honor sort of the project with visits from teachers who we deeply respect and admire. You'll see Tanajan Jayasaro in that center photo for our whole community welcoming him. And Longpor Jundi, I believe, in the bottom right, visiting Ajahn. So it's just been astounding to see how much beauty has come forth to welcome this particular flavor of Dhamma in the Northwest.
Yeah, and this one in the middle on the bottom is actually us. We led a group of 30 pilgrims to Thailand 3 years ago, and almost certainly we'll do that again. Certainly if and when we get this land, we'll lead a group of 30 was a lot. But yeah, we pilgrimage in Thailand where the roots of the tradition are, and then further back into the roots of India as well. And as you can see here on the bottom left, this is our robe offering ceremonies every year. And there's a lot of people, so we're kind of bursting at the seams.
And the final thing to mention is Steve talked about the interweaving of the modern tech and the ancient tradition. And it's really been our ethos. You know, the Buddha spoke about praise speaking the vernacular of the land you're in. And in this day and age, the digital is the vernacular to some extent. So our ethos has been to keep as pure teachings as we can and holding that core to ripple them out via these hybrid means to make it available to those who don't have a monastery nearby. And honestly, it's been very meaningful to see that that's been significant for people. So we're hoping that this monastery is a blessing to not just those in the Northwest, but to those everywhere around the world, to see these bridging of communities, of traditions and more.
That first summer, because people may not know this, that first summer, it was such humble beginnings with Ajahn Nisabo sitting in the grass with 4 or 5 people in Lincoln Park in West Seattle, and then maybe a dozen people in Volunteer Park. And of course, this was summer. And so one thing that was just beautiful and sweet and tiny, but also this was summer and we were aware that, rain was going to happen. So couldn't do it in the park indefinitely. And then when we did set up a meeting with Father Stephen Thomason he's the dean of St. Mark's Cathedral, and he was just unbelievably I didn't, none of us knew it was going to happen. It was me and Ajahn Nisabo, but he unbelievably open about, oh, sure, yeah, we can do that, and they offered us a space. It was incredible. So just a kindness that's made this happen is so amazing.
He also offered me a granola bar and wrote a check to Clear Mountain. I couldn't receive the check, but Steve did, and I also couldn't receive the granola bar because it was afternoon, so Steve did.
Way to go, Steve.
I'm happy to serve. But Ajahn Nisabo was also talking about centering prayer, just like his incredible ability to connect with people in ways that are heartfelt for them. So that was amazing to watch.
Howdy, Steve. Allison, please.
As Steve mentioned, there was a lot of networking that was occurring in the initial beginnings for looking for land. And then we also had simultaneously a community member who was a real estate agent that was helping us out and organized some field trips for us, which we did go visit. But I think the first of it being in the summer of 2022, then nothing was really coming up just with the looking at Redfin or Zillow. So then we decided to connect with a commercial real estate broker, thinking they might, just have a little bit more reach than we were able to get, and we did make some good headway in that. We narrowed down to an area in Cougar Mountain that seemed very promising, and even had some estimates done for an appraisal, and then we found out there was going to be an issue with the road. So back to the drawing board, and back to the drawing board meant we sort of wanted to recalibrate how we were approaching things. And early on, I think Steve said this, that there was it seemed like land conservation sort of went hand in hand with the forest tradition. And we ended up connecting with Forterra. And it's through this connection that the reach for our land search kind of just opened up. Not to say it was easy, but because there's a lot of criteria that we were looking for. But yeah, a lot of possibilities were starting to come forth, and we did focus on another parcel in Cougar Mountain, but once again, we found out the road was a challenge. So we were very delighted to find this new piece of land that we have put an offer on, because it seems we will not be fooled a third time that this road is going to support fire access. So yeah, it's been a lot of energy, a lot of people that are not on this video, but definitely so many people have contributed towards bringing us to this point.
So just to tag on there to Allison's comment, the number of criteria we were trying to satisfy really was pretty difficult. Close to Seattle, access for fire truck and fire access so that we could have a large public building, forested, and so on. And so partnering with Forterra really was a turning point. We also really want to mention the contribution of Brianna, now Anagarika Kema, who really gave a huge amount in this search and was our land search steward for quite a long time. So just sort of wanting to honor that.
Yeah, and in addition to all of these human resources, really caring human resources, as you can see in these photos here, we did bring visiting elders out to these various properties. Here we have Lumpur Jundi in Snohomish. We brought Ajahn Jayasaro, Lumpur Pasano, Ayasantuska, Lumpur Damrong, Lumpur Kun, Ajahn Moshe, Ajahn Yanako, all out. And in each of these visits, 3 or 4 or 5, we're chanting and kind of inviting the devas is one chant that we do to just invite any beings of light or any beings that we might not be able to see to help this search and help the whole process. So yeah, we're trying to call in any resources that we can.
Which brings us to
land found in North Bend. And we're going to play the video. That was America. This is Washington. And that's North Bend. And here we are.
It's a great video.
And here's a closer video, or a closer picture of the parcel. 2 50-acre parcel and a 40-acre parcel. So 90 acres total. And back to Allison.
Yeah, so it is 2 parcels, and I'll just want to say that working with this group here and also others, it was many weeks of negotiations. They were 2 different sellers, and I really got to see how well practice can show up in negotiations. It really, patience has been the key for this search. Yeah, 2 adjoining parcels, totaling about 90 acres, about a 40-minute drive from Seattle. It's beautiful forest. There's a stream, view of a Mount Si, and I'll just say I've been to a few of the pieces of land that we have been looking at, and right when I walked on, it just felt like this is it. Like it just felt very right. I immediately felt like I was at home and that I could just envision my spiritual family there with me. So it was really sweet to arrive there. Yeah, and the practicalities is that there's enough land for buildable land to accommodate the full vision of Clear Mountain. And again, we keep pointing to these wide enough roads to accommodate fire access. It's very important. And yeah, and what's also really special is that the monastics are going to be able to walk for alms. It's within approximately a mile. There's an alms resort and there's a lovely little restaurant there. It's called South Fork, I believe. And yeah, and so also just kind of going back to this conservation aspect, there is an element of where we may be able to recover some costs through future conservation easements. So it's kind of, we get to preserve forest and as well as, try to steward these funds as thoughtfully and as stretch them as far as we can. So it's kind of, I don't know about win-win. That doesn't feel as pretty to say, but it's a good fit. So thank you, Hawkins.
Would any other board members like to chime in on any of this? I'll just say that, yeah, this land really is special, and we'll have to see through due diligence if it's if it fits the criteria, and we'll get into that in a second. But for all the reasons Allison laid out, this really is a precious thing that we feel has come onto the radar.
It just felt really nourishing to be there. I hope you all get to come and experience that. But as we were sort of walking along, a group of elk just happened to pass in front of us, and it felt like this incredibly serendipitous and really just special moment that I thought everyone might like to hear about. It was really, it felt really, really special and like a really magical place.
I think we'll get to know those elk over the years.
Nicole.
Yeah, as was alluded to earlier, there was quite a few hiccups in some prior parcels that we were looking at, and the silver lining in that gray cloud was that it allowed us to bring together a really great team to shepherd Clear Mountain through the entire process, or at least moving forward. So it was kind of like a trial by fire. We got a really great team together. One of those, the top one here on the list, being Forterra, which is the largest or maybe second largest land conservation organization in Washington. They've been really essential to use their resources to help us with the land search, and our relationship with them will continue through the conservation easements. They'll help us set that up. They'll help manage the easements so that we can protect the land far into the future. We're using also a engineering firm, kind of a integrated firm, or you might call them a prime contractor, to do all of the research that we're going to have to do in the next 3 months of due diligence. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second, but doing all of the engineering, all the research to make sure that these parcels can do what we need them to do. We have our great board here and those members who've come before. We have a new member, a new volunteer owner's rep, Peter Hummel, who is a retired landscape architect. So he's using his expertise to guide the engineers and to kind of project manage that side of things, to know what to look out for, what to ask for, keep everything moving on time, on budget, all of those great project manager kinds of things, right alongside our land steward, Alex Haynes, who stepped into Brianna Anagarika-Kema's prior role. She's been essential in keeping track of all of the moving parts that questions that need to be answered get answered, the documents that need to get routed, following up on all of the spaghetti strings that make up this big bowl of a project. She's essential. And if you see Susan around in the community, Susan Tilak, she has been great to visualize, to do a little bit of programming of what size buildings are we going to need for how many people, and what does that translate to in onto the footprint of the land, and can we start to visualize that with the topography and things like steep slopes? Can we work around wetlands? Is there enough to do what we need to do? And she has been so central to that program. And Hayden Robinson is another architect consultant giving us advice. So if you see Peter, Alex, Susan, or Hayden in the community, please tell them thank you. They have done so much silently in the background. And so moving on, what's going to happen in this next phase, the 3 months of due diligence, is a really deep investigation to determine if the land can accommodate the future monastery, that 3-phase vision that we talked about earlier. So things like, is the soil buildable? Can we put a septic tank on it if we need to? Will it hold a road? Will it hold a building? Is the road wide enough? Can we get water and electricity here, or how are we going to get it here? These kinds of questions, many more questions that also county approvals. There's so many permits and approvals that have to happen, and can we get it done, or at least does it look good that we will be able to get it done so we can do all of these, build this beautiful community that we're wanting to build. If everything checks out okay, then Clear Mountain will close on the property and we can move into the design and build phases, starting with a place for Ajahn Skobilo Nisabo to live. And we can also designate the conservation easements, which will eventually help to fund the building phase, as Allison mentioned. And in the meantime, we'll still be meeting weekly at Skinner Auditorium while we build the monastery as we can.
Yeah, I appreciated that last bullet point we put in there, the whole building the monastery part. But so thank you so much, Nicole. And Nicole stepped in as secretary and before that as our land development lead. So has just served as such an essential bridge in really taking the care we need for a purchase of this scale and a step of this scale. Would any other board members like to contribute, or Ajahn?
Just a tiny thing. One other bullet point we need to have there is just like keep trying to be good monks.
Yeah, that too. Continue progressing towards awakening if possible.
Maybe so.
So I had the great opportunity to go on pilgrimage to Thailand in the fall, meeting with some extremely highly awakened direct disciples of Ajahn Chah. And what was striking was that they were extremely aware of what Clear Mountain was doing, very, very interested, a real sense of great respect for what was happening in North America and the significance of it. And you know, there's an acknowledgement that so many Western practitioners are really deep practitioners, and this, I think, I had a real sense of a lot of appreciation for that, and the way that this, this 2,600-year-old tradition is coming alive in the West, and Clear Mountain is an incredibly important part of that. And I was really struck by just the respect and interest from these extremely senior people. There's no sense of like some silly things happening in America. Was like really listening, very interested, really supportive. So that's just powerful.
Thank you so much for adding that, Steve. Kim, Jyotikara, would you finish with our final slides?
Yes. So are at how you can help us complete this process. So just wanted to let you know some ways you could get involved, get your questions asked. So for the next 3 months, the monks will be hosting some sort of question and answer sessions for people to jump on and ask questions, get a little more information about the land and the process. So after the normal Wednesday Zooms, they will stay on at about 7:45 or so, and people can ask their questions. In addition, they're going to be having some field trips out to the land. So the intention is that the first and third Saturdays of the month after the normal gathering, around 12:30 or so, we might be having some times to take some field trips out and visit the land. We might hold some pujas, some chanting, some meditations. I'm sure that there will be some volunteer opportunities, cleanup parties that might happen at the land as well in the coming months. So there'll be all kinds of ways to connect in. So just, dedicating the merit of your practice to this beautiful project, as we've said, which will, hopefully really become a refuge for this whole region for generations to come. On the sort of practical side, I also have the privilege of being one of the gratitude stewards, as well as Steve and others. So, we sort of take turns calling and expressing our gratitude and thanks to people who have been donating to this project over many, many months and years. And I have heard often, time again, questions about, have you found land? Have you found land? I have money I'm setting aside that I want to donate, so keep us posted. So consider yourselves posted, right? We have found this beautiful property, and if we can come together, we can make this a reality, a refuge for the region. So, we have around 4.3 million in already gifted and pledged donations, which is amazing. And we have 3 months to come up with the rest of the resources to solidify this project, as long as the due diligence goes okay, of course. So we need about 5 million. And so that leaves about 600,000 for us to come together and to really bring this project, at least this first phase of it, to fruition. So if you feel drawn, you can learn more and donate at friendsofclearmountain.org/land. You can find where to donate. Many of you already give so generously, but this is the time to come together as a community and see if we can bring these resources together for the benefit of all.
Thank you, Jyotikara. Steve, please.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Jyotikara just expressed so beautifully. I'm also one of the gratitude stewards I'm calling this month, and it's such a joyous thing to do that, to hear from people, because, and for any of you who are considering donating, there's donors across the world who have been inspired by this. And it's just extraordinary. I've talked to this one Sri Lankan woman in Nova Scotia twice who donates, and just constantly talking to these people like someone in some little town in Arkansas or someone in the middle of St. Louis who's clicked on to what's happening online, and it's so helpful for them. And whole bunch of donations from Thailand, also from lay people who are inspired by what's happening here. So, it's $600,000 is a big lift, but on the other hand, there's a huge community of people whose hearts are moved and whose spirits are moved by this. So and they're wonderful people. So you'll be in community with so many beautiful people to get this over the finish line for the benefit of everybody.
Thank you so much, Jyotikara, Steve. And, we've been endeavored to be so careful with any sort of speech regarding funds, etc. We always want the community to feel completely that this is a gift. So we don't do explicit fundraisers. And because so many care about this project, we also felt it was right to inform the community about the situation, about the dream, and about the practicalities needed to make that dream happen. So we hope that this presentation has been useful. We would very much appreciate if people dedicate the goodness of their practice and their lives to this. Please, if you do have questions, join us any Wednesday these coming months, and just stay on after the usual finish at 7:45 p.m. And Ajahn Kovelo and I will be happy to answer as many questions as we can, along with any board members that happen to be there. And yeah, if you live in Seattle, come to the Saturday gatherings and say hello, or come to the field trips on the first and third Saturdays. And if you don't live in Seattle, but are looking for a place to move near a Dharmic community, just keep us on your radar. We really are hoping to create a focal point and a kind of heart of a community here. And we would welcome anyone that wants to come and visit and see what it's like here, because hopefully this will be a refuge for many, for generations. So anything to add, Ajahn or board?
Nope, I just, especially putting a plug in for actual visits to the land. It's very special. We just went this morning, and the heart kind of just sings just going out to the land, and it makes you want to practice. So.
And just to say, we really, this is not a sure thing. We have to do some careful work to make sure it's the right fit, but may it be so. And if not, may something suitable arise as well. We'll see you all soon. Thank you, board.
Yep. And we'll see anybody, if this is the first time airing, we'll see you over on Zoom shortly.